Hi! In this video, you'll learn how to use the SIFT method to evaluate a source. The SIFT method is a four-step process that you can use to evaluate articles, especially those you see on the web or social media. The letters in SIFT are an acronym for the four steps: stop, investigate the source, find more coverage, and trace to the original context. The first step when you see an article on the web, especially one with an alarming headline, is to stop and read the article before saving, sharing, commenting, or jumping to conclusions. Many news headlines are written to grab your attention and make you want to share on social media. Some are not even written by the author of the article, but by the editor of the newspaper. This is why it's especially important to read an article before sharing it based just on the headline. For example, when we read the headline for this article, "Have we vastly underestimated the total number of people on Earth?" it sounds kind of alarming. Vastly underestimated implies that there could be a lot more people than 8 billion. How many more? Where specifically do these extra people live? When we read a little further into the article, we find that the places being undercounted are specifically rural areas, which already have relatively low populations. We also find out that there are many scientists who believe that while there likely is an undercount of global population to some degree, it's unlikely that it's a significant one on the order of millions or billions of people. Now that we've stopped to read the article before jumping to conclusions, the second step is to investigate the source, including the author and the publisher. When you look into the newspaper on a site like Media Bias Fact Check, does the paper have a reputation for factual reporting? Try to avoid newspapers or authors known for using questionable sources, and keep in mind potential biases that might influence what they're interested in reporting on. Let's have a look at our example. We can click into our author's bio to learn a little bit more about him. He's a technology journalist who's published a couple of books on social media, so we can assume he's probably a pretty good writer and researcher, but not an expert in global populations or anything like that. What about the publication, though? Let's have a look at Media Bias Fact Check next to see the publication's record. When we look at their report, we can see that the New Scientist has a pretty good record for factual reporting, and that they tend to be pro-science. We can also see that they're funded by the company that runs the Daily Mail, though. And we could consider that sort of a yellow flag, since the Daily Mail is known for a certain amount of sensationalism. We can also see under the analysis bias section that they have a record of using loaded headlines that might alarm the reader. This aligns a bit with what we've been seeing so far. Nothing about the article itself seems all that loaded, but the headline was pretty alarming and probably written to drive social media engagement. Our next step is to find additional coverage on this issue. Because I'm looking at a news article that I found on the web, I'll turn to Google first and search for some related keywords. Earth global population undercount. I can use the news tab here to get more news articles and fewer forums, web pages, things like that. And when I look in here, I can find articles from a few other sources besides the New Scientist, mostly small science-focused sites. When I read these articles, I find similar basic facts on the situation. That a new study has revealed population undercounts in rural areas, but that no specific amount of undercounted people has been identified, and the scope of the issue is unclear. Our last step is to trace the story to its original context to make sure we're not missing anything. Let's have a look at our New Scientist article again. Our New Scientist article names an article by Josias Langritter and colleagues from Aalto University in Finland as its source. If we read the original article, titled "Global Gridded Population Datasets Systematically Underrepresent Rural Population," we find that the article is not arguing that the entire population of the Earth is undercounted, but that the population counts of rural areas specifically are inaccurate, and that researchers must do more research into better population counting tools. In fact, if we look up that author, Josias Langritter, We can even find an interview he did with BBC responding to the virality of his study. He too stated that this was a paper meant to identify an issue with population counting tools first and foremost. For more information on source evaluation, visit your subject research guides, our source evaluation research guide, or contact us at shay.library@aic.edu. Thanks for watching.